The guns went quiet this weekend, and the price of fear collapsed with them. Understand what that is, Warband, not peace, a pause. And a pause is exactly where the crowd does its worst thinking. This is Monday, July 27th, 2026. Markets open into a different world than the one that closed on Friday. Here is what changed. Start with the anchor. As of just past 5 o'clock Eastern, Bitcoin trades at 65,100, up about 1% on the day, and back above the 65,000 line it spent the whole weekend defending. And the engine finished what it started. You already know Bitcoin and Ethereum turned their optimized trend green at the stroke of midnight Sunday. What came after is the new mark. At 8 o'clock Sunday morning Eastern, Solana turned green behind them, the last leg of the complex to fall in line. All three now carry a bullish trend on a read of the InvestAnswers Decision Support System, and Bitcoin still stands as the lone bullish anchor on the wider board. The broad market, the long bond, and gold all red behind it. Ethereum is the one running hardest of the three, up 4% on the day and better than 20% on the month, outrunning Bitcoin itself. One caution before you get comfortable. Weekend volume ran better than 40% under the recent average, and last week's fund trading was the thinnest full week since October of 2024. A green trend printed on empty books is a claim, not a verdict. Today's close is the confirmation. Into the open, Tesla last closed at 386 and Nvidia at 195. Now to the thing that moved the world. For a second straight day into this morning, the United States and Iran both held their fire. No strikes. Diplomats working to give resumed talks room to breathe after a push brokered through China in Pakistan. This is not a signed peace. The fight over who may pass through the Strait of Hormuz is still on the table. But the market did not wait for ink. Oil broke. West Texas crude fell as much as 8% toward the mid-80s. Brent slid near 90 after camping above 100 for a week. Equity futures ripped, the broad market up nearly 1%, the Nasdaq up better than 1.5%. The war premium that has ruled this tape for 2 weeks evaporated in a single session. Here is the part the crowd will miss. The price of the fear collapsed. The damage did not. Fewer than 10 commodity ships crossed the Strait of Hormuz this weekend. Before this war, roughly 100 a day made that passage. Crude is still up near 40% on the month, and some 80% of Kazakhstan's exports remain shut in after the strikes on its Black Sea terminal. The tape just reprised the headline while the plumbing stayed broken. Remember that when the next headline runs the other way. But there is a real gift buried in it, and it lands Wednesday. 4 days ago, this market was pricing serious odds of a rate hike. A $100 barrel stacked on inflation, stuck near 3.5%, had the crowd braced for Chairman Walsh to swing the hammer. Oil at 84 changes that arithmetic completely. The hold is nearly free to him now. What is not free is whether he uses the calm to sound harder than this tape expects. And mark what the coin did through all of it. For 2 weeks, Bitcoin was bid as a place to hide while the world burned. This weekend, the hiding place emptied out, and Bitcoin went up anyway, with its whole complex turning green behind it. That is the harder tell. A safe haven bid you keep after the danger passes was never a safe haven bid at all. It was demand, from the war to the ledger. Over the weekend, the Wall Street Journal reported and Bloomberg carried that Nvidia is in talks to backstop as much as $250 billion of financing for OpenAI, not for chips, for the lease and the debt on a $500 billion 10-gigawatt data center campus in Ohio that SoftBank is assembling. A separate arrangement, reportedly near $350 billion, would finance the silicon itself. Be honest about what this is. Talks, reported by a first-rate outlet, confirmed by no one. It may be restructured. It may die in a room. Weigh it as a report, not a fact. But weigh what the report tells you, even if the deal never closes. The most valuable company on this earth is discussing guaranteeing the debt of the customer that buys its product. That is not a purchase order. That is a chip maker underwriting the balance sheet of its own demand. Still beats parchment, and there is a great deal of parchment being drafted right now to keep this build-out moving. I am not calling it a bubble, and neither should you. The hunger for compute is real. The shortages are physical, copper and transformers and cooling and turbines and raw power, and this cycle is barely a fifth built. But there is a difference between a capital cycle funded out of profits and one funded out of guarantees. And this weekend that line moved. Now find the scarce thing inside it, because it is sitting right there in the specification. 10 gigawatts. NVIDIA can guarantee $250 billion with a signature. SoftBank can raise it by Thursday. Not one of them can conjure 10 gigawatts of firm power out of a term sheet. The paper is infinite. The watts are not. That is the whole trade, and it is the same trade as 21 million coins. And to the factory floor. On Friday, Musk put a number on the thing he has been promising for 3 years, and for once, the number was a warning. The Optimus production ramp, he said, will trace an S-curve with an opening stretch that is quite flat and quite long. The hardest manufacturing scale up Tesla has ever attempted, because a humanoid robot cannot ride the car supply chain. Samsung, Taiwan Semiconductor, Panasonic and Micron are building chip, battery and memory lines from bare ground to feed it. Hear what that actually is. Not a robot problem, not a software problem, a supply chain that does not exist yet. The intelligence to run the machine is arriving faster than the industrial base to build the machine. An industrial base takes years and cannot be downloaded. Meanwhile, the other half of that floor is further along than the tape believes. On the earnings call Wednesday, the company confirmed the Cybercab has begun production. A drone flyover this month counted 245 of them staged at the Texas plant, more than double the count 5 weeks earlier. Counted from the air, so read it as direction, not audit. And here is the honest wrinkle underneath it. Robotaxi fleet mileage actually fell roughly a third last quarter, from 1.1 million miles down near 700,000, not because the riders vanished, because Tesla is pulling those miles onto retrofitted Cybercab chassis to calibrate the production car. That is not a service stalling. That is a service changing horses at a gallop. So carry this into the week, Warband. The guns paused and the fear premium died, but the ships still are not sailing. Trade the plumbing, not the headline. The whole crypto complex turned green on empty weekend books, which makes today's close the only one that counts. And a $250 billion guarantee is now propping up the largest construction project in the history of capital, while 10 gigawatts of power and 21 million coins remain things no signature can create. Own what cannot be signed into existence. This is Warband as a service, Viking intelligence delivered in real time. I am Ragnar, the HODLBARBARIan. Read the runes before the crowd does. Skål!